You guys remember back in the 2000s when extreme sports games were so popular that almost every game developer and publisher out there tried to make a buck out of it? I mean, true, extreme sports games were made prior, but it wasn't until the Tony Hawk franchise when the genre really started to take off. It got very overstimulated with the games that were out and ripping off the Tony Hawk franchise. Midway, THQ, hell, even Activision themselves started to rip off their own games and started to milk this genre dry. But then again, Activision is very notorious for doing stuff like this all the time. Just take a look at the Guitar Hero franchise, or with what's been going on with Call of Duty nowadays. But there was one other publisher out there that tried to capitalize on the genre as well, and that would be Acclaim Entertainment. Besides Activision, Acclaim would constantly pump out tons of extreme sports games, some of them even backed up by real pros, like the Dave Mirra BMX franchise or the Jeremy McGrath Supercross games as well. But there was one other game they published in 2002. That game was called Aggressive Inline, and as the name implies, the game focuses more on inline rollerblading as opposed to the traditional skateboard. I never paid a whole lot of attention to inline skating. Not that I hated it, I mean, after all, if I did, I would have never been a Jet Set Radio fan. It's just that it never really caught my eye, unlike skateboarding. While it was cool to see people do some cool tricks on a rollerblade, they were also very limited compared to a skateboard or even a BMX. But consider me surprised when I got a copy of Aggressive Inline for the GameCube a long time ago. I never played it that much as a kid, as I was mostly a Tony Hawk fan, but I also did remember enjoying this game as well. But now it's been over 20 years, and I think it's about time this game gets a little revisited. Aggressive Inline was developed by Z-Axis, the same people who made the Dave Mirra franchise, also published by Acclaim, and was only developed with only 25 people in the studio. The devs wanted to innovate on the genre by ditching the 2-minute timer system from the first 3 Pro Skater games and deliver more of a relaxed approach. Instead of being stressed about completing all of the objectives in a certain amount of time, Aggressive Inline lets you do these challenges at your own leisure, having you explore the level and pulling off some sick moves while also finding secrets along the way. The challenges themselves are your usual score this many points, do a trick while transferring from ramp to ramp, etc, etc. It's simple, but it gets the job done. Another thing that sets this game apart from the Pro Skater series is how you can level up your stats. While earlier Pro Skater games you have to collect stat points, Aggressive Inline has you increase your stats just by playing the game, ranging from grinding, manualing, and pulling off tricks consecutively. Just keep on doing these moves and you get your experience points to level up your stats. And yes, I did say experience points, as in the same kind of experience points you get for defeating a monster in an RPG game. Personally, I like this system. In fact, this system would later be an influence for later Tony Hawk games like Tony Hawk's Underground onwards. It follows the same formula, but while Thug 1 wants you to do a specific trick a number of times, or holding a trick for a number of seconds, Aggressive Inline just continually increases the stats every time you finish a combo. Even just jumping or skating grants you experience points to increase your jump and speed. It's a great improvement over the stats from the Pro Skater games. Another feature the devs did differently were the challenges. I already mentioned how they got rid of the 2-minute timer system from the Pro Skater games, but the game starts off with having a few challenges already unlocked, ranging from scoring as many points in a level to performing gaps like transferring pipes as mentioned before. But you can also unlock new goals as well by talking to pedestrians, or once you completed said goal, a continuation of that goal occurs. Like with the first level, the movie lot. There's a mission where you have to grind the rocks surrounding the boulders. Once you finish the goal, you then need to grind on the chains holding the boulder up. And when you do that, the boulder gets broken free and a new piece of the level opens up. This is common in the game, as every level does this as well, causing mayhem and destruction, and sometimes opens up a new section of a level. But that's not the only way you could be able to unlock a new section of a level though. There's also certain areas in the level that's locked off. You need to find a key to unlock it, but the key is not in the level itself. Instead, it's located in another level. Once you get the key, that section opens up and even gives you some brand new goals to complete. It's an interesting idea and also encourages the players to explore the levels more thoroughly, as opposed to just unlocking a new part of the level because you grinded on a helicopter or wall riding on a school bell while it rings. Although it's more simpler in the Pro Skater games, Aggressive Inline's level design is huge, and the game wants you to explore any and all kinds of nooks and crannies. Although there are at times where the level design does get a bit too cluttered for my liking. The outside areas are fine enough, giving you enough space to do tricks and maneuvers, but inside is a bit more cramped, causing you to bump into objects or even bail out of your combo. Despite this does lead on with the laid-back approach Z-Axis are trying to go for, having the players just skate to their heart's content and pulling off sick tricks while also exploring the colorful world the game has. Seriously, this game has more characters in life than in any Tony Hawk game in my opinion. I'm not even kidding when I say that. Aggressive Inline plays the same way as any other extreme sports game, but unlike your Tony Hawk's or Dave Mirra's, Aggressive Inline system is very limited. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the inline skating sport has a very limited number of tricks you can pull off. So if you're expecting to do some crazy moves like in the Tony Hawk game, then you're going to be disappointed. That being said, it's not bad. The square button is used as your grabs, which if you're a Tony Hawk player like me, is very distracting. Triangle is to grind, and the cross button, yes, that is the actual correct term for the X button on a PlayStation controller, is to jump. But what about this big red circle button over here? What is that used for? Well, it's used to grab onto poles and swing around like an acrobatic doing a circus performance, or by vaulting over rails and ramps. And trust me, it looks much cooler when playing it. Timing it right by doing a vault or swing while performing a combo is satisfying, especially if you follow it up with a grind. Although the wall ride maneuver is weak, especially when you have to press down on the D-pad and the cross button at the same time to perform it, and sometimes it's a pain to actually pull it off. The input delay in this game is kind of laggy a bit. There are times where I did do a command for a move only for the game to not register it and end my combo. 90% of the time they're manuals, and they're even worse when you're trying to pull off a manual too. You probably noticed this little meter here on the upper left. That is your juice meter. Now in a Tony Hawk game, this would be your special meter. And while you do get it full all the way to do special tricks, it also serves as a health bar or adrenaline meter as well, meaning if it depletes, then it's game over. Now, I know that might contradict what I said about the laid-back approach to the game, giving the freedom to do whatever they want with no timer getting in the way, but you can increase it the more tricks you pull off and if you land the combo. You can also find these juice boxes scattered around the level to refill it and even increase it as well. So it's something you should not fret over. It's easy to fill the meter back up, even doing a small combo is good enough. That said, I never really quite understood why some extreme sports games do this. Like, bro, just let me skate to my heart's content. I don't want to worry about my health depleting all the way and then the game is over. Please don't do that. As for presentation and soundtrack, for a game released in 2002, Aggressive Inline looks right up there with any other game released for the 6th generation. Character models look good, especially with the pro inline skaters, the environments are great to look at, and the levels are so separate from each other, it makes it a lot easier to know where you're at. The soundtrack is also what you expect from an early 2000s extreme sports game. Nothing but pop punk, nu metal, and classic hip hop and rap music. We're talking Real Big Fish, The Far Side, Saliva, The Vandals, POD, Sublime, etc, etc. Though this could just be a minor nitpick, even though I like the song Crawling in the Dark by Hoobastank, I do think it doesn't fit well for being the intro theme for the game. I thought Don't Sweat the Technique by Eric B. and Rakim would be a better pick, especially since it's the theme that plays during the main menu. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. Aggressive Inline is still a fun extreme sports game to look back to, and definitely did improve many elements from the Pro Skater series, and was the inspiration for other extreme sports games, including the later Tony Hawk series. It's definitely worth checking out if you're into the inline skating scene. That being said, it's unfortunate that we never got a follow-up to this game. Although the game was met with rave reviews, sales-wise it didn't do well. It was a massive flop, and we would not get a ton of other inline skating games shortly after. As for Z-Axis, they would release another game that same year, which was... yeah. And then followed by them being bought out by Activision. The final games they ever developed with Activision as their publisher were X-Men 3 the official game, not to be confused with the unofficial fan game, and Guitar Hero Van Halen while going under the name Underground Development. They were also developing their own Call of Duty game called Devil's Brigade before shutting down in February of 2010, leading to the project being cancelled. It's unfortunate that this game never really got the recognition it deserved because Aggressive Inline is still a decent game through and through. True, it's not going to wow everyone these days, but it's still something that deserves to be played. Aggressive Inline is criminally underrated, and if you want something different to play besides the Tony Hawk games, this would be the first game I would point to. It's dirt cheap to find online or near your local retro game store. I know it sounds like I've been putting off the Tony Hawk games in this video, and I see why. But I still love the Tony Hawk series as they play an important part of my life. But I also gotta be fair, and I honestly think that this game was a worthy competitor to the Pro Skater franchise. And it's a shame it never really got the feel it needed to fly off. Regardless, Aggressive Inline is still a fun game, and I honestly think it's worth checking out when you get the chance. Trust me, it's a lot better than how it looks.